This is the Dery Brothers Tribecast, a podcast for diehard Cleveland Indians fans. Presented to you by WaitingForNextYear.com. Now, here are the hosts, Matt and Todd Dery.
All right, let's do this, everybody. The season will begin tomorrow. Matt and Todd Dery, it is indeed the Tribecast for another week. Of course, we had the emergency Dery Brothers Tribecast on Monday talking about Paul Dolan, but let's talk some baseball. The season is about to start for the Cleveland Indians on Thursday as they will head to Minnesota to face the Twins at 4:10. Season opener, Corey Kluber against Jose Barrios. Tribe picked to win by everybody, mostly to win the AL Central, although there are some detractors who believe it's the Twins' time to get this thing done. Todd is on the road, joins me now. What's going on, buddy?
Let's move over to some baseball business.
Oh, yes. Here we go, 162.
Yes, I'm very, very excited. Very excited. We got about a day and 1 day away, and a lot of question marks surrounding this team. But I still think they're the class of the AL Central, so we'll see how it works.
So the team opens up tomorrow, and let's talk about the rotation first and foremost. Corey Kluber gets the opening day start. I know Trevor Bauer is probably a little bit disappointed, but then kind of shot down the Twitter report from Paul Hoynes that he was ticked off and blew off the media. And I saw Bauer on Twitter today giving away some T-shirts, so he seems to be fine. But, Todd, let's be honest, when we're talking about this team, it all starts with the rotation. You might not be able to find a better rotation in all of baseball with Kluber, Bauer, Carrasco, Clevenger, and Shane Bieber, and it's probably how this team is going to have some success this year, is if those guys are the horses that we expect.
I think the only way this team is going to have success as they are currently constituted is if those starting pitchers are as good as we think, know, and hope that they're going to be. With the whole Bauer not starting opening day thing, listen, in the end, what really matters is who's starting game one of the playoffs, right? And whoever's pitching best is going to start game one of the playoffs. Would it be a nice honor for Bauer to pitch opening day? Sure. But in the end, none of it matters. I don't honestly believe that he was really upset about it, that he blew off the media. I think that's all, overblown. I mean, we know how eccentric Trevor can be, but I think that he's a team first guy. He wants to win. And in the end, he'll make 30 starts. Kluber will make 30 starts, as long as everyone's healthy, and none of this will end up mattering. I would like to add that in my fantasy draft last night, I did draft Clevenger and Bieber. So looking forward to watching lots of Tribe starting pitching deep into games.
How serious?
Hopefully often.
How serious do you think Francona was in naming Bauer as his possible opening day starter? You think?
Oh, I think it was definitely under consideration. I mean, if you put both of them on the open market today, I think Bauer's getting a bigger contract. Don't you?
Well, yeah, Bauer's younger, and I also think that
he's an ascending talent.
He doesn't. Kluber, yeah. There's mileage on Corey now. There is, and I'll be very interested in seeing if what he tops out at tomorrow, and whether or not that fastball has got life to it. If he's hitting 90, 91 and not fooling anybody, it could be a long day tomorrow. That's possible.
You also have to see if he's going to be throwing more than two pitches, because at the last few months of last season, it was basically a two-pitch repertoire for him. So, which is a real testament to how great he truly is, that he was able to get by, with half of what he normally has. We'll see. It's one start. I don't want people to freak out if he has a bad outing, because that's going to happen. But of the five guys in the rotation, Kluber's the one, to me, who has the biggest question mark surrounding him, believe it or not.
Isn't that crazy to think? You're talking about a guy that was up for the Cy Young again last year, has won it in the past, and
twice.
Twice. So, I just wonder. I wonder why the Indians shopped him. It's not like his contract is bad or exorbitant by any stretch of the imagination, but why was it that the Indians were looking to move him? What do they know? What do their medical people think? Maybe it was a motivator for him to be on the open market for a while in trade talks, and then, Terry Francona mentioning that maybe he wouldn't start opening day and that they were going to make that decision. Usually you'd figure for a two-time Cy Young Award winner and a guy that always starts game one of every playoff series, at least over the last 3 years, that he would be the lock to start this season and on opening day. And he is. and you hope for the best, and you hope in cold weather conditions like they will be in Minnesota, and then when the team comes home next week, that's going to be difficult for the hitters, and Kluber does his thing. But this rotation's very, very solid. I love the article today by Terry Pluto on Carrasco and Santana, how the two Carloses basically have adopted Cleveland as their home, and both guys want to finish their careers here. But you really look at Carrasco as a 3, and he's really, really good. And, Clevenger a 4 and Bieber a 5. I mean, this team should be holding other teams in check all summer. That's how I look at it.
It wouldn't shock me if Carrasco was the best of the 5. It wouldn't. It wouldn't shock me if Clevenger was neck and neck with Carrasco. It wouldn't shock me if Bauer won the Cy Young. It wouldn't shock me if Shane Bieber was dominating and, basically looking like a number 2, number 3 guy. Because if you put Shane Bieber on 90% of these rosters right now, he's not a number 5. You put Clevenger on 90% of these rosters, he's not a number 3. So, the Indians, it's an embarrassment of riches that they have in that rotation, and it's how they're going to have to win games, especially early, because I think, like you said, with the cold weather, I think we're going to see a ton of 3-1 and 4-2 games, in April and May in particular.
Matt and Todd Dery, Dery Brothers Tribecast, brought to you by our friends at waitingfornextyear.com, and, of course, our pals at Groove Ride. Todd will tell you a little bit about that workout place coming up in a second. All right, rotation's great. We know that. Adam Pletko's down at AAA if they need him, if somebody, knock on wood, gets hurt. Bullpen's another story. I mean, you look at the names. I don't remember who it was that put it out on social media a couple of weeks ago. They're like, this is the same. Might have been our buddy Ray Bennett. This is the same bullpen as last year, or something to that effect. And with John Edwards as an addition, as a guy they're hoping can be a setup type guy and be with the team all year. Of course, some injuries, including Tyler Clippard, among others, that will not start the season. But you look at Hand as the closer, then Simber, Edwards, Olsen, Otero, Neil Ramirez, and Óliver Pérez. Am I concerned? Of course I am. What about you?
It's definitely a concern. Am I more concerned about the bullpen or the outfield? That is the $1 million question. But, with this pen, there's definitely some upside there. I think John Edwards is going to have a big year. I'm a fan of his. The real question is, what are you going to get out of Óliver Pérez again and Neil Ramirez again? Will you get a repeat of last year where they basically saved the bullpen halfway through the season before Hand and Simber arrived? Will Simber find himself? He was great in San Diego and came over and had very, mixed results. So they need him to be that right-on-right guy that was so dominant in San Diego. There's a lot of question marks, obviously. I think the Indians were hoping that Tyler Clippard and Alex Wilson in particular were going to make the team. Clippard's obviously injured, and I think he was on his way to making the team. Alex Wilson was not great, not a lot of life on that fastball, as you said, 88 miles an hour straight, so he's gone. There's plenty of reinforcements at AAA, too. Nick Goody didn't make it, probably because he's out of options. You got Jeffrey Rodriguez down there as well. Henry Martinez is a guy that looked great this spring. So I think we're going to see a lot of mixing and matching, and it's going to take a while to figure out who's going to pitch where also. Because you and I, we don't know. We have no idea if they go up, if they're up 3-1 in the 7th and, Tito decides to go to the pen. We don't know who he's going to go to. We really don't. I mean, I believe it'll be Óliver Pérez and Simber, but we don't know. So that's going to be something interesting to watch. These guys are going to have to figure out and play into their roles, I guess, probably over the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season.
And that's the thing about Edwards. He's the one guy that can dial it up to mid to high 90s with his fastball. The rest of these guys, and I would say Neil Ramirez too, to an extent, can hit 97, 98, but the rest of these guys don't throw all that hard. I watched Simber pitch the other night against the Rangers in the exhibition game on Monday, and quite honestly gave up some hard hit balls. If his stuff doesn't have movement and he's not using that deception with the drop down and the sidearm delivery, teams can put bat on ball against him. That's one of my big concerns with Adam Simber. I'm with you. I think the X factor and wild card is going to be about June 1st, if in fact Danny Salazar is healthy, comes back, and can just rear back for 1 inning or 1 1/3, 1 2/3 innings, and hit 97, 98 again and be the guy that was an all-star a few years ago, albeit he's not going to be in the rotation, I don't think. Cody Anderson, the same type of thing whenever he comes back, but Salazar's the one guy that maybe you get to about June 1 and he's ready to go and feels good, and it's not mentally out of it and not emotionally out of it and is actually just not worrying about his arm being hurt and just pitches, and that would be an enormous weapon for this bullpen. But again, I know you're with me on this. I'm not holding my breath on Danny Salazar.
Yeah, I'm with you. Danny Salazar is a guy who's very intriguing. I've been talking about this for 3 years, by the way, hoping that he's going to be the guy that comes and saves the pen. If he can throw as hard as he once threw in that rotation, he's going to throw even harder for an inning. I think he'd be a perfect guy to come in and be a little bit of a tonic in June or July. But again, like you said, I'm not holding my breath. Same with Cody Anderson. These guys have a good opportunity to be a big part of this team come late in the year. I could see it happening for sure, but it's tough to count pitched in 2 years.
No, and it is, and we know the history with Danny and all the chatter around the team. And is he sure of himself that he can get on a big league mound again and not feel like something's wrong with his arm? And then he goes through a battery of tests, and they say it's fine. It's a concern, but he's on the 60-day or whatever they call it, injured list or DL, and he's not going to be back until June 1st anyway. So we'll see how it goes. But is there a concern about the bullpen? Yes. We even mentioned Brad Hand. That's the one guy that we really, how can you not love him and what he brings from the left side as a closer? That's not a concern. The only issue is how often is Tito going to use him for 2 innings, an inning and a half, an inning and a third, whatever it is, and will he be healthy all year? You hope so.
I really hope that he doesn't overuse him and use him more than an inning. But he's going to lean on him heavily because I don't think he with anybody else. It is a premier closer. That role, it'll be interesting to see which way that role goes as well, because with Cody Allen and Andrew, they were kind of interchangeable. With Hand, he's really the one guy who's probably going to pitch the 9th inning. But there may be days where Tito goes to him in the 8th to face the 3, 4, 5 or up in the 8th, and that's when he decides to use them. So that's going to also be something to watch early in the year.
Matt and Todd Dery, Dery Brothers Tribecast, of course, right here on waitingfornextyear.com. We are brought to you by our friends at Groove Ride. Todd, I know you've gone there to work out and be a part of their family for a while. Tell the audience how they can find Groove Ride and what it's all about.
Thanks. I got to tell you, Groove Ride is fantastic. I am there almost every day, if not every day. They got 3 locations downtown, at Perk, across the street from Perk Park, right there in Reserve Square. The newest location at the shops at Van Aken is great. There's also a lot going on at Van Aken that you can check out. And my home at Woodmere, I do boot camps there with the great Ashley and Beth Ann. They are as good instructors as you're ever going to find. Everyone's super nice. They also play awesome music, mostly hip-hop, which you and I obviously love. But check them out, grooveride.com. That's grooveryde.com. And tell them that Todd sent you.
All right, there it is. By the way, where on Chagrin are they?
Chagrin and Brainerd, right? Basically catty corner from CVS.
Near Village Square Pizza?
Village Square Pizza is still there, by the way.
It is?
It's called De Gaetano's Village Square Pizza.
Well, okay, but it has a different name. Because I drove by there last week or whenever I was back.
Village Square still exists, absolutely.
They still got that same good pizza?
Yes, they do. It's excellent. They're not paying for this, though.
I was just about to say, what am I doing?
Free plugs.
Payola and plug all the time. All right, let's talk a little infield right now. Tomorrow, when the Indians open up against the Twins on Thursday, you'll see Carlos Santana at first, Brad Miller at second, Eric Stamets at shortstop, and José Ramírez hopefully at third base after the injury. And obviously, over the weekend, we were terribly scared that foul ball off his leg against the White Sox was going to be something more serious. But as far as the infield goes, with Francisco Lindor out, we're not sure how long, but we would think maybe at least a week and a half. that up the middle. Very interesting, Todd. Certainly, they made that trade to get Luplow and Moroff from the Pirates and traded Erik Gonzalez in the process. You'd figure Gonzo would have been your second baseman if that trade never occurred, and they must not be too impressed with Moroff to go out and get Brad Miller, and immediately he's going to start at second base on Thursday.
The real shame of it, like you said, is they could really – this is Erik Gonzalez's time, finally, not even on the team anymore. I would have liked – it's too bad he's not around because we kind of know what we have with him. Good glove. He's a right-handed bat, but he's now the starting shortstop for the Buccos. So that ship has sailed, as they say. The fact that they had to go get Brad Miller off of waivers, essentially, he had a nice spring with the Dodgers. He at one point was a nice piece for the Tampa Bay Rays. They really liked him. So, listen, am I super excited about Brad Miller? No, but let's be honest here. Could Brad Miller be that much worse than what Jason Kipnis is going to be at second base?
No, well, you're right. I mean, look, he's 28 or 29 years old. He's notorious for hitting the baseball without batting gloves on, which is always interesting. My thing about this whole up the middle thing until Kipnis and Lindor come back, and of course Jason Kipnis at least going to be out, you'd figure, the entire month of April with that calf injury. What I'm interested in seeing is if Eric Stamets, who all of a sudden has found some power, changed his swing a little bit from the right side. Let's say Stamets looks okay, and then obviously he's not Lindor, and he's kind of a 4A guy, but if he shows some pop and that he can catch the baseball, which everybody says he can, then, could Stamets move to second if Brad Miller's not hitting or if Moroff's not doing anything once Lindor comes back? I'm interested in seeing what Stamets looks like and if he's a keeper and if he's a guy that then could become your utility guy and beat out the likes of Moroff and Miller,
Here's the difference. Well, number one, I'm sure of it because he would have gone down to the minors, but Brad Miller's got no options left, and Moroff has no options left, but Stamets does. So that's not going to help his cause. Even if he does well, I mean, you know how these things work. He's probably then going to go down, and they'll give Moroff, a little bit more rope to see what happens with him, and then, they'll take it from there. But, Stamets hit that grand slam the other night, got us all in a lather in Texas. Should be interesting to see. I mean, again, great defensive player, so you got that going for you. But again, he kind of is what he is. We'll also have to see how José Ramírez is after taking that line drive that he hit off of his knee. I wish everybody could have seen our text exchange during that. It was between that. What was it? It was like, what was the bigger deal, that or Robert Mueller? They were going down. They were all going down at the same time.
It was a rough Sunday in the Dery house.
It was a stone groove, my man. No, in all honesty, when Jose went down, that would have been. Let's say that would have been a broken bone. That could have been the all-time worst-case scenario. Because if he's not there, Max Moroff is your starting third baseman, and there's nobody else. There's no other option at that point. And then you're looking at Moroff, Stamets, and Brad Miller in the lineup, which is suboptimal, as they say. So it's going to be a lot also on the other guys in terms of hitting because you don't know what you're going to get from Miller. You don't know what you're going to get from Moroff. And you don't know what you're going to get from Stamets. And sounds to me like they're going to rotate those three in those two spots quite a bit.
Yeah, and Tito always loves that, and he'll mix and match, and he'll, platoon and everything else. Carlos Santana, I will say this, I watched him a ton during the spring. He looks great. He's in great shape, changed his stance a little bit. It's a little bit more upright. I think he's trying to shorten his swing and hit the ball the other way, and they'll be shifting on him as they always have, so that's somebody you're not going to worry about. He'll be in there every day, whether it's at first base or at DH. I'll say this about the catching situation. We're all Robo fans. I think Roberto Perez will be fine, especially defensively. Kevin Plawecki had a very quietly hit the tar out of the ball in the spring and had a home run the other night also, and has had a couple of good-looking swings. So, that's something to watch. If he hits every time he plays, and you got to figure Perez will get the bulk of the catching duties, but let's say Plawecki's a guy that's hitting and Perez isn't, that's a good problem to have. That might be an underrated signing by or pickup by Chris Antonetti when he traded for Kevin Plawecki to the Mets, in the wintertime.
Well, I will say this about him. He has always, the reputation of him was a good bat, but his glove is not that fantastic. And with the Indians and the way that this staff is, it's going to be interesting to see somebody who's come in from the outside who doesn't know these guys and how he's going to handle them. Eric Haas was up a little bit last year. He got a little bit of run, and he's been in the organization, obviously, so they know what they have in him. And I think he's a good player. But the fact that they went out and got Plawecki, I don't know what that says. I think it's just more of catching depth. We'll see how he is. I don't think he's going to play more than a couple times a week. But like you said, if he hits, with the way this offense is, he's probably going to force his way in there. Getting back to Carlos real quick, just because I didn't get to touch on him, it's so nice to have him back in an Indians uniform. It's like he never left. I think we're going to look back in 10 years at that, like the 1 year he was gone as a giant blur. He belongs in an Indians uniform. He caught a lot of unnecessary flack for walking a lot over the years, which has now become more appreciated. But I'm just thrilled that he's back in Indians uniform, and you can tell he's happy to be back here as well. So great to have him back, and look forward to seeing him in the old number 41 for the next couple of years.
He deserves to be back. He's hopefully going to put up Edwin-type numbers or better. Maybe not better in terms of home runs and RBIs, but you would hope for a higher OBP, like you said, and maybe less strikeouts than Edwin brought to the table. And he's grown up and he's matured. And I know there were always those whispers years ago about him maybe not being the best teammate and being a little bit selfish and everything else. But I watched him run the bases the other night on not the Greg Allen double or triple. I think it was the Naquin double in the gap in Texas. And Santana was running hard like it was October, like he was playing a playoff game. And I love seeing that. And that should hopefully rub off on some of the younger guys. So I'm with you on that 100%. Outfield-wise, Todd, I don't even know where we should start. Jake Bauers is not getting a lot of talk. I don't think people in Cleveland know who he is. But that's a guy that they traded for and eyed and obviously sent packing Yandy Diaz to get. And that could be the wild card. That could be the, oh my gosh, where'd we find this guy from type of move if he comes up and hits. Didn't have a great spring. He'll be out in left field where I know he butchered a couple of balls this spring and actually has a decent arm. But, when people see him in the 2-hole for opening day, they're going to be like, wait a minute, Jake Bauers is hitting second, but I think he can handle it.
He's going to have to handle it because I'm not sure what other better options you have. They traded Yandy Diaz, who, as we've talked about many times, didn't get his fair shake here. He was traded, and the Rays think very highly of him, obviously, and Bauers was a top 100 prospect. So, I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. I think it's going to be a positive experience. I'm not thinking that he is going to be, the second coming here, but, I want to see a lot of contact, a lot of walks, and then his versatility, whether he's playing first base or he's playing left field, he brings that to the table as well. So I think it's a good pickup. I am a fan of Jake Bauers, and I have faith that he will be pretty good. It's what I'd like to see more of in the outfield, and we've talked about this before as well, is I want to see more Greg Allen. And I don't think he's getting a fair shake right now. I really don't. He was the best outfielder in terms of numbers this spring. He can play all three outfield positions, got the speed. He's shown that he can handle himself and acquit himself nicely at the major league level. His time's now, and I don't understand why on opening day and probably for the first few games because the Indians face 4 right-handed bats, we're going to be seeing Tyler Naquin in right field. Why shouldn't that be Greg Allen? I don't understand, but that's just me.
I think they have a contingency plan, and it obviously starts with Hanley Ramírez. If Hanley Ramírez is a complete joke, which some of his at-bats in the spring, he looks old, he looks slow, and he looks finished. He barely made it. And so if Hanley Ramírez is your DH on opening day, and which I think he will be, and they see how it goes, but I think they're going to have a short leash with him because if Greg Allen is hitting, whether it's a pinch hit late in the game, whether it's a spot start and he goes 2 for 4, they're going to have to find a place for him. Francona has a love affair for Naquin. There are days you watch Tyler and you say, oh, man, he took one the other way, like the other night against the Rangers. Great, quick, short swing to left center for a double. He has that capability. I mean, he just always seems to get hurt when he's finally hitting. Leonys Martin, I think they love his defense in center, and they love that he's a veteran that, quite honestly, almost died last year and has come back and said, man, I can't wait to be an Indian again. And I think he brings a lot of positivity and a veteran stick out there that you can rely on. But there's some sort of plan B or C. I just don't know what it is yet. If Naquin struggles early, does that mean Allen plays? If Hanley struggles early at DH, does that mean then Santana goes to DH, Bowers goes to first, and Allen goes to left? There's a lot of different moving parts here that I'm not sure the Indians themselves are sure of yet. Plus, you throw in the Carlos Gonzalez thing. Where would he fit in? But it's good that you're putting pressure on some of these guys to have to perform early, like Naquin, in order to find out if they're going to stay or not.
Best case scenario is Carlos Gonzalez hits well, does a great job, up until April 20th down at AAA, getting himself ready. They bring him up. He replaces Naquin in right field. Hanley does a great job at DH and, finds that fountain of youth and is in the middle of the order, hitting right-handed. And then you have, Bowers in left field doing well, and then you can kind of rotate and use him where you need. That to me is the best case scenario. Now, I personally think that Hanley's going to flame out. The more I've watched him over the last 2 weeks, the less I've liked him. He looks heavy to me. He's not, they said he wasn't driving the ball. Other than the one game where he hit the 2 home runs, he really has not done much else. So, as a prospect, when he was managing the Red Sox, of Hanley Ramírez at May 15th. Are you taking the over or the under on May 15th?
I'm taking the under. I think I don't like what I see. I watched him against the Rangers the other night, and I know we're basing a lot on 2 stupid games in Texas, but that don't mean anything. But boy, oh boy, when these pitchers were throwing curveballs and sliders away, he wasn't anywhere near them. And maybe there's a reason why he did not sign with anybody last year, nor did he get a job this spring until middle of the spring. So I'm hopeful because it's a right-handed bat. It's somebody that is respected around the game, that has a history and a track record. But as far as the optics right now and the eye test, he's not passing for me.
I would agree. But, when you look up and if everybody is healthy and you have Frankie at short hitting leadoff and probably Leonys Martin hitting second rather than leadoff and, with the rest of the guys, with Cargo and Carlos and Hanley, if Hanley could actually, be good, and then Bowers is deeper in the lineup, and Kipnis is deeper in the lineup, and Robo's hitting ninth, or all of a sudden the lineup looks much better. But it's really tough when you're sitting there banking on, a fading Hanley Ramírez and Carlos Gonzalez, who, if you look at his road and home splits over the years after Coors Field, it's not something that is all that impressive, and he is a former All-Star, not a current All-Star. So there are a lot of things that are being counted on in terms of the young guys being good and the older guys who they've signed and taking flyers on hitting. So there's not a lot of margin for error here with this club, that's for sure.
No, especially offensively, and I think fans need to buckle up. And first of all, the Indians never get off to good starts ever. And I know that was more of an Eric Wedge thing than a Terry Francona thing, but if they're sitting about a game over 500 or at 500 after April, I may take that based on Lindor being out, Kipnis being out, Carlos Gonzalez not being ready, and the likes of, like you said, Brad Miller and Moroff and Stamets playing. Who knows how healthy Jose Ramírez is even going to be tomorrow. So, I think if they can stay afloat in April, ride that pitching, find out what they have, then the weather warms up. There's a classic bit. And we get to a place where in May you'll see more of a lineup that you're used to seeing daily. I think this team will be just fine. The hope, like you said, is that Jake Bowers is kind of a breakout guy. And that's the guy that is the Jake Bowers that Rays fans were waiting to see. The Jake Bowers that hit a walk-off against the Yankees last year and did a sweet bat flip at home. He's got that kind of badass plays with an edge type of look to him. It's just a matter of putting it together consistently, and he's getting his chance now. He's never really had his chance every day, and he's going to be playing in front of fans. I mean, not that our fans are great and they're packing the place, but playing in Tampa and that's a difficult thing to do, to come up and play for the Rays when you're in that mausoleum there down in St. Pete. So we'll see what happens, but that's my hope. I'm not expecting anything big in April, Todd. That's for sure.
I would agree with you. Now, because my time is limited, let's get to predictions here. I need to know how many games the Indians are winning. Matt Dery, how many games are the Indians winning? Where are they finishing in the division?
I think they're going to win 89 games, and they'll win the division. What about you?
See, this is why, you and I share the same brain when it comes to the Indians. I actually was going to say 88 wins and win the division. But we are going to be playing meaningful baseball all the way through, including September. That's the difference between this year and the last couple of years.
So you're saying Minnesota will be on our heels and be with us pretty much the entire summer?
I believe they will, yes.
I mean, look, the additions that they've made and Molitor being gone, it's their rotation is questionable. Obviously, Brios is good. I'm a little surprised Gibson's at 4 and not moved up. We'll the Indians will see Brios, Jake Odorizzi, and Michael Pineda, who could be a serious wild card for them if he pitches anything like he did a few years back before he got hurt for the Yankees. So that is a pretty good team there. And if Buxton is as good as he's looked in the spring, that's scary because he's the guy. When he's been good, the Twins have been good. People forget they were in the playoffs a couple of years ago, so they're not horrible. And it's not just
they were in the playoffs and they screwed us by gagging against the Yankees after scoring 3 in the first inning and knocking out Severino. But that's another story for another day.
But I'm with you. I see 88, 89 wins, and still, I also see this summer being a lot different than last summer. I thought last summer's team at times was unlikable in terms of sleepwalking through some games. The bullpen was a disaster. I think with some new faces and some injection of youth this year, and a guy like Greg Allen could end up being a real fun guy to watch, and maybe just maybe this summer will be a little bit more fun than last summer, which quite honestly wasn't that great.
I was going to say, I don't think it possibly couldn't be more fun than last summer, only because it felt like the entire season up until October was spring training, and these guys were, like you said, sleepwalking through. But maybe you'll see an injection of enthusiasm from these new guys, and we'll see something different. But I don't see how they're going to win more than 88 games. I really don't. And I think the Twins are going to be better. And I don't think the White Sox are going to be all that bad, to be honest with you. I don't think that they're going to compete. But
I agree.
I think that they're going to be decent. Yeah. Although Rick Renteria with his 8,500 pitching changes, that should be fun to watch yet again for another summer.
Yeah, if Eloy is everything that the White Sox fans think he is, and is the second coming of St. Ignatius or Jesus, then we'll see what happens there. But you're right about the White Sox. They're not horrible. Polka's got some power. I like Tim Anderson. They're decent, but again, I think they'll be hovering around 500. But for them, that's an improvement. And if they're young pitchers, if a Giolito and some of these other guys are finally better than they've been, then they'll be more competitive. But you're right. Over the last few years, them, Kansas City, and now most recently Detroit have really been bad, and they'll continue to be bad. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, my man. Well, stay tuned for tomorrow. We'll have games to be talking about next week on the show. I'm excited.
Same here. You're the band.
Oh, and one more thing. No bunting. Terry Francona, if you're listening, we love you.
Hashtag bunting is for losers.
We don't really have to get into how good of a manager we have and what he brings to the table in the clubhouse, but the immense amount of bunting that takes place in that clubhouse and on that field for that team in red, white, and blue drives us both batty. So hopefully he'll let some of these guys swing the bats, and we'll go from there.
There's nothing better than when I'm doing a spot with Gene Winters on 92.3 and always asks me about bunting every single time because he knows I hate it so much.
All right, sir. We'll talk to you.
See you.
There he is, Todd Dery with me, Matt Dery. It's been another edition of the Dery Brothers Tribecast, brought to you by waitingfornextyear.com. That's where you can find us. And, of course, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Subscribe to the show, please. And also, give our friends at Groove Ride a try at GrooveRideRYDE.com. We'll talk to you again next week.